So I got this comment on my YouTube: how can the British Army be colonised by Israel when Israel itself is a British colony? Make it make sense. Firstly, you need to stop caring about flags and borders and national pride. The people at the top do not give a fuck about Britain or Israel or any other country. They care about money and control. They have moved their money offshore. They do not pay British tax. They hire private armies. And they want companies to do the work that the government is supposed to do. Nationalism is a trick. While you wave flags and worry about immigrants and talk about patriotism, they are selling off your army and your housing and your future to private corporations with no state allegiance. This is globalism. The old British Empire controlled colonies like Israel to guard oil and territory. The new empire is private globalists who want to control Britain and Israel and everywhere else. And they use nationalism and religion as costumes. It's not real. It's just a marketing tool. The British Army isn't actually being colonised by Israel. It's being colonised by Israeli corporations. And once a private corporation runs your army, you cannot vote them out. They're not loyal to Britain. They're not even loyal to Israel. They are only loyal to shareholders, other billionaires. Israel was created and armed by Britain a century ago. Do you think it's still a British outpost today? It's a Wall Street outpost now. These globalists have no national address. It used to function as a geopolitical outpost for the British Empire. Then for a long time it acted as a Western client state. Today, Israel itself is a corporate militarized hub. And it's no longer paid for by Britain. It is heavily funded by the United States, the home of the corporation. And they, in Israel, incubate the darkest of technologies, from surveillance to automated bombing to drones. And they want to make more money. How does a corporate military hub make more money? Finds more governments to sell weapons to. These are perpetual contracts. Once he signs that, it's game over. Elbit is embedded in NATO supply chains. The old colonial empire is gone. The corporate empire consists of transnational arms dealers and finance networks that transcend state borders. Under Maggie Thatcher, core army functions were sold off. This trend has continued, and now the Ministry of Defence outsources recruitment to a company called Capita, outsources training to a company called Babcock, which means the British state doesn't even have control over how soldiers are trained anymore. The Annington Homes deal in 1996 sold all of the army's housing to a private company called Nomura. The Ministry of Defence now rents back homes, costing the state billions every year. That's corporate capture. This private company has wedged its way in so that instead of just owning the houses, the British government is paying to rent them. And in the weapons space, once the pride of the British Empire, its ability to innovate technology, has also been outsourced. Britain doesn't make its own weapons anymore. That's quite the security risk. You're trusting Israel to make weapons that won't blow up in your face. This is colonization by capital. It creates a permanent establishment of private defence corporations. The British Army is now structurally dependent on private companies whose loyalties are not to Britain but to their shareholders, and making enough money, more and more and more money. That means more and more and more war and hostility and brainwashing troops. In December 2024, Yvette Cooper had a covert meeting with Elbit. The only reason the British public know about this is through Freedom of Information requests, and they are still refusing to release the recording. This meeting came after 3 British military veterans were killed by an Elbit drone in Gaza. The previous Conservative government had also held meetings with Elbit. Those Conservative meetings were about UK policing and the suppression of pro-Palestine activism. The meetings that Priti Patel had with Elbit breached British standards of prosecutorial independence. Elbit even met the policing minister, Chris Philp, at that time. They have no business in those rooms. Elbit has no business in those rooms. Since 2012, Elbit has secured over £355 million of new contracts with the Department of Defence. Yesterday, the 21st of August 2025, The Times reported that a whistleblower handed over a dossier to the Ministry of Defence. The dossier documents 19 separate instances when this guy, Brigadier Philip Kimber, the former head of the Army's Collective Training Transformation Programme, met Elbit during a period that he was legally barred from doing so. The dossier includes emails, WhatsApp messages and calendar entries that show Kimber was advising Elbit on strategies on how they could win the contract with the Ministry of Defence for the planned Collective Training Transformation Programme. This is a huge British Army project worth £2 billion. This is a transformation programme. Whoever wins that contract is not simply supplying the gear. They are designing the structure of the British Army for the future. This is the whole training system. Elbit is Israel's biggest arms firm, actively participating in a genocide. Brigadier Philip Kimber helped Elbit plan how to win this bid. This is a generation-defining story, and it will not be covered in the mainstream news. Should any foreign company, Israeli, American or otherwise, be allowed to design, own and run the training for the future of the British Army? That's not just equipment, it's how soldiers think. It's how the army functions structurally. If that is run by any external contractor, the army has been outsourced. British people are told to feel pride in their armed forces, but the housing is owned by a Japanese bank, recruitment is organised by Capita, and now the training of the brain, the literal indoctrination structure, could be handed to Elbit Systems. That means, on paper, the British Army is no longer British at all. It's a patchwork of private foreign owners. Consecutive neoliberal governments, not just the Tories and not just Labour, all of them in the soup, the Privy Council, have been given foreign companies the keys to the kingdom behind your back over the last 15 years. Israel is not your colony. Israel is the globalist colony, and you are going to be next.